it takes our focus away from our academic learning.
Okay, John, your feelings on internet regulation here at LCA?
Guys, I'm gonna have you speak up because we're gonna compete with the little ones. Speak louder.
I think that internet regulation on a local level, like at a school or business,
Okay.
is a good thing and a productive thing.
Okay.
I just have a problem with things when it gives the government to regulate the entire.
Okay, so the entity that you're within, in this case LCA, you feel each of you feels has the right to regulate the internet for you. Okay, let me take this a step further. I have the right to regulate the internet on the Cal computer that you check out, right? That you take very good care of and don't drop and don't break screens and keys on, right? Okay. Do I have the right to regulate the internet on your personal iPad that you bring in? It's not my device now. Now it's your device. Do I have the right to regulate the internet on that?
I would say that you do, because even though it's our personal device, it's
Right.
your internet.
Yes, it is. Okay. Everybody agree with that?
As long
Okay.
as it's on school property.
What if Hunter brings in his iPad or his iPhone or whatever else, and he is using cellular internet? So it's not my internet anymore. Now it's cellular internet, and he's on my campus, and he's wanting to go to some website that I wouldn't necessarily approve of or that you've signed an agreement not to be on. Do I have the right to regulate that? If Coach Galloway catches Hunter in the hallway with that device on cellular internet and he's gone to this unapproved site or something we would not approve of, do we have the right to punish him now? Should we be able to regulate that?
Yes.
Yes?
Even though we're using our own internet, we're
Correct.
on your grounds. And that contract says that if we are on your property, we should follow your rules. And we're not allowed to use our own internet on
Okay.
these grounds. Therefore, we're already breaking one rule just by being on our own internet. So therefore, whatever is on there is subject to your discretion and what would be wrong.
So gentlemen, do you agree with that? Your device, your internet, my school. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if I sign the contract saying that I'm not going to do that and then I do it, that's fine. If you regulate that and punish me, and it's an academic setting and you're trying to focus on productivity, so I think it's completely reasonable to limit productivity inhibiting activities.
Back to what I said, just if we're on school grounds, then yeah.
Can I
But,
get
like,
you all to put that in writing so when I block Netflix during finals week,
That'd be great.
that I don't get 1,000 emails?
Okay, okay, so certainly there's objectionable content, we'll say, that's available on the internet. And I have a duty as an employee of this school to make sure that you can't get to that to the best of my ability, right? Because as I say to everybody, you can't unsee things. So it is our duty, Mr. Halls and mine, to make sure that you guys can't get to that. At what point do you feel comfortable in me saying this is okay and this is not? Where should I draw the line? Do you feel as a student here at this school that I should be able to say this is not okay and this is okay? We talked about governments doing that. We talked about the FCC being able to do some of that. Where should I be able to draw that line?
I think the line should be drawn when it goes from being for academic purposes to recreational purposes. Because I'm on it, like, we block Netflix here, right? Even though I want to enjoy Netflix here, there could be a great documentary on here, it's still Netflix. So you can get to 1,000 other titles on there, and some of them cannot be educational purposes. I don't think Family Guy is a real educational help here, but if there was like a documentary I was wanting to see,
Right.
you take the loss there. But I think when I'm trying to access Wikipedia or Google or just anything that provides information, like the Britannica websites or anything like that, when it provides information, that we should be allowed to access that.
Okay.
So now what happens if I find questionable content, language, graphics, and instructional how-tos on how to get around my firewall on Wikipedia? So just throwing it out there as a hypothetical, if you were in my seat, would you block Wikipedia then for the entire school?
If I would not block, I don't know if you can do, could you block that certain search?
But we can do anything, Hunter.
I think
So let's
that-
hypothetically say, no, I can't block an internal page from Wikipedia.
I think that you would still have to leave the entire domain open, because honestly, Wikipedia provides so much resource. Like, I use Wikipedia for almost everything. They say not to use it for research papers, but let's be honest, we use it for research papers.
You take a
So,
that hurt you a little bit, didn't it, Miss Cat?
so even though,
Sorry, Miss Cat.
even though
Block
we
Wikipedia.
use, even though that one thing can be harmful, I think that if you catch that, you should address the student themselves and try and figure out their intentions with that, whether it's for trying to get around the school's internet to get around that, or if it's just for information purposes. I feel like that's when it should go from being just a system that regulates it to where it's contact to contact.
So, Mr. Mitchell, what percentage of bad things should I let through, and what should that percentage of good to bad be on a website? So let's say Wikipedia is 95% good, 5% bad. Is that acceptable, or do I?
I say it's acceptable. I say about maybe 60% bad. Actually,
Critical.
yeah, close to 60.
Mr. Strunk, what do you think? What percentage would you throw out there?
That's a tough question. I don't think quite 60% bad. Maybe like 20%. I don't know. I mean, if it's a large thing like Wikipedia, that's big. But if it's like a small like website that has a couple articles on it and 50-50, it's good or bad. Like it's not going to be much use. I think it depends on the size of the website and the scale of it. Depending on the result. I mean, if it's a small website with like very few resources and it's like 50-50, then definitely block it. But if something's so vast as Wikipedia, I don't think that you should block so much resource just because there's a small fraction of it that is bad. So I think the percentage on that varies based on the amount of resources on that website.
Can I say something?
Please.
Absolutely. We talk about regulation and government regulation and all of this and good, bad, whatever. What would you say is the balance between government regulation and personal responsibility? If you're talking about, things that you've signed, apparently, I guess you guys signed something here, and would regulation be necessary if there was personal responsibility involved?
I think it should be like completely personal and localized. I don't think the government should be stepping into people's like regulating stuff like that. I mean, the Constitution was made, and the idea that the local people would decide laws and stuff for themselves, and then the federal government came along and it grew, and now we have this. But I think that I think everything works better if it's more localized because it's more personal and it's more unique. I mean, not everything's the same, and there's so many different situations. I think it's hard to have the government deal with every single situation throughout the entire country with just a couple of bills.
I agree with John there. I mean, there's no way the government could take control of everyone searching for questionable material. They just couldn't. There's no way they could do that. So I think if personal responsibility was a way to regulate it, that should be the way to go. But let's be honest, people are going to do what people want to do. There's no way that just because I think that, I think trying to buy a child off the internet's wrong, someone else might not think that. So they may go ahead and try and search for that and find that. So it really just, it's a hard way to dictate what to do with that.
I think to Mrs. Reed's point, personal responsibility plays a large part in this. And Hunter, you just brought up questionable material. Are there things that we feel are just completely out of bounds and should be regulated regardless of where you are on the internet, what country you're in? Are there things that are just so far beyond the pale that we should? You said selling children. I think that would certainly fall in that category.
In my opinion, like stuff like that where you're taking the rights away of another human being, that's definitely a line that needs to be made, where you can't, if you're going to search for anything or try and access something that would take away the rights of another human being, that's not okay.
Are there any other things like that we feel are just completely out of the question, should be regulated and not allowed anywhere?
I mean, like you can hire hitmen online. Kill people.
That'd be a good one to maybe next.
Is that Google or Bing that does that?
You Bing
Probably not.
Either one.
Okay.
Where would you go for something like that? No, but
It's a legitimate question.
a legitimate question, like can you go to Google or Bing to find something like that?
No, and you have to get special software to access special servers. Known as the dark web, I guess, by a lot of people to get that kind of stuff.
I think that's a fairly safe word. I'm pretty sure everybody's heard that on NCIS or
The
Law
dark
and
web.
Order or whatever.
Don't do it, by the
so.
way. We blocked the dark web.
But that also brings up another point that I'd like to make. I think that because the nature of the dark web, I think that the government is pretty ineffective at completely regulating all that. And I think that this situation is similar to the prohibition. Like people being alcoholics, I mean, it's bad. Like, I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with people selling children or buying hitmen. But I don't think it's necessarily a problem that the government can't fix. And I think it's pretty much impossible. Like they tried to ban alcohol and it didn't work out for them. I think that this is a similar situation where it's so huge and the internet can be really anonymous, and there's several ways to get around things, and there's no way for the government to regulate all of it. And I think it's too big of a problem to tackle for it. So I don't think the government should get too involved.
Okay, somebody else agree with that, or do you have?
I'm agreeing with John there. I mean, it's just people are going to do whatever people want to do. So, like, if with the prohibition thing, people wanted to drink alcohol, so they made speakeasies and would make moonshine in the mountains. So, I mean, regardless of whatever regulations there are, people are just going to find ways around them. Just like people find ways around the firewalls here, set up hotspots or whatever. And
How do they do that?
I have no idea.
Okay, good. That was the right answer, Hunter.
So someone's always going to find a way around it. So
You can build
no
it,
matter-
somebody can break it.
Yeah. So I think that if there's less restrictions made up to begin with, people aren't going to try as hard to get around them, and it's not going to bring people aren't going to see it as a challenge. Because I feel like once laws are there, people will see it as a challenge. So they're like, well, they say I'm not supposed to go find this on the internet. Let's go find a hitman on the internet. And I think that if with less regulations, people will look for it less.
Or will it just be more available and people will look for it more?
The two-sided blade again.
It is.
Risk you would have to take in order to find out the answer to.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a little bit about the current state of internet regulation. I'd like you guys to hypothesize a little bit from your research. You guys are the experts now. Where do we feel like the future of internet regulation is going? And certainly you can speak to a little bit about net neutrality and where we think that will ultimately end up, but push it out 5, 10 years, wherever. From the information that you've got, the expertise that you've gained, where do you feel like we're going with internet regulation? More, less, different? What's going on? Where are we going to be?
Yeah, I think that we are going more towards on the side of more regulation,
Okay.
as governments normally do.
More regulation in the United States or globally, you think?
I focus on the United States. Hunter did more globally. I'm not sure.
Well, but you personally, do you feel like it's going to be more just in the United States, or do you feel like it's going to be more globally as well?
I guess more globally too.
Okay.
I mean, unlike sexual states of other countries, but I think that the government here, I think a lot of governments will expand their regulatory powers for like a just cause. So the name is something just, like for stopping something illegal. They'll say that like if we the people give the government powers to regulate the internet, then they'll stop crime or something like that. And I think they're going to inch more and more towards regulating more and more in the name of doing good. But I hope that does not continue, because I think that is a dangerous thing to give. I think it's really dangerous to give the government a lot of power over our internet, especially because even now and more so in the future, the internet is pretty much everyone's key source of information. And if we give the government control over that, then they can decide to regulate something, and they can block information from citizens, and they can keep their citizens naive to something, and they can completely control us. And thankfully that's not the case now, but I hope it won't be
It's the case some places, but not everywhere.
yeah, not in the United States, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I think that's very dangerous, and that is why I am against increasing regulations.
Parker, what do you think? What's the future look like? 5, 10 years? What are my kids going to have to deal with? Is there going to be more regulation, less?
Probably a lot more because
Okay, why?
With all of you see going on just around the world in general, like
Okay.
even with off the internet, just I feel like that'll even just cause us to regulate even more, because trying to just with them wanting to do what's right and just try to stop all the possible crimes out there, they'll just try to regulate as much as they can in the future.
Okay. Both in the U.S. and globally?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's already global, but they'll just keep getting even more because especially if it's already starting to in their countries, it'll just only increase there.
I actually disagree with both of them. I think that regulation on the internet it's going to be fluid.
Okay.
I mean, as of America right now, a few years ago, President Obama passed several regulations dictating what could pass and not, and then I believe on the 3rd or 4th of April of this year, President Donald Trump took some of those regulations away, and he made it to where internet providers, if they're taking information from people, they have to make it more known. And I think that really it just depends on the type of government, the political party that they follow, because as we've seen with President Trump, though, he's a member of the Republican Party, and they tend to want less involvement with the government, with the people. But with the Democratic Party, they want more involvement. So I believe that it's really just going to be fluid on what type of leaders we have in the world. If you have people like Kim Jong-un, who is just completely controlling all of the information his people have, then their internet regulation there is going to be really strict. But if that were to change, if their type of leader were to emerge in that society, it would change. I think it's a really fluid thing that could happen, and it could happen almost instantaneously, depending on what type of people there are.
Can I respond to that?
Please.
I think that the instance with Trump undoing regulations, I think that shows that there's a fight against it. However, I don't think that is proof that it would be fluid. I think that still, I mean, there's a fight against it, and I think Trump is an anomaly. I think we can all agree on that. But I don't think that he or that trend of taking away power, especially from the government, will continue, because you can look through history, and when the FDR created agencies specifically for the Great Depression to get themselves out of that, like very, very few of them ended after that. They continued to grow and get more powerful, and I think it's reducing one's own power is not a common thing. It's really hard. So I don't see it decreasing.
Can I respond to what he said?
Sure.
I think that through the sorry.
No, you're good.
I think that the American people, this is just in America alone, this instance, we don't trust. I feel like there's just a general untrusting of our media outlets. Like, I won't watch CNN, I won't watch Fox News, I don't trust either of those sources. So I think that the American people are slowly growing in their thirst for knowledge and fact and everything else. I think the internet is what they're turning to. I think that more people are trying to research what happens out in the world on their own, and I think that the American government at least realizes that, and they're not going to try and impose regulations so people can get what they feel like is the truth.
Okay. Like citing sources from Wikipedia, it scares me that people are going to grab all their information directly off of the internet. It is. What happened to books? Oh, do we feel like the free market plays any role in what happens with internet regulation moving forward? Do we feel like the free market will help dictate where that goes? We talked about political parties. We've talked about global powers. Do we feel like the free market has any part to play in the future of internet regulation? If so, why?
I think so, because a lot of the reason why these regulations were first introduced was because back when the internet was first developing, a couple companies became close to becoming a monopoly, and so people generally don't like monopolies, and so
Why don't they like monopolies?
because they're afraid of them. Well, if they have all of the market share, hypothetically, we'll say that they can do whatever they want to control it. I'm not exactly of that opinion, but that's the common. That's a lot of people say, and so fear of that is why people push for regulation and to break up those monopolies. So I think economics and free market definitely comes into this.
Economics is a key word there. Gentlemen,
I agree with what John said.
do you think the free market does play a place in this? The almighty dollar could dictate this. Look at it this way. If you don't like how much a cab ride costs, what do?
Get a new one.
You start up Uber or Lyft. Lyft isn't Lyft the other one? That's what you do. Competition will dictate a lot of this, I suspect. And the free market could play a very large part in this.
Yeah, I also think that's another problem with net neutralities is it's trying to control the free market. It's trying to force prices on companies.
Can I ask the Kate question or you guys?
You ask it.
Okay. Gentlemen, is there anything that you have discovered in your research that you found surprising, that really